You know, every town, even your town, has a kind of secret blueprint. It's a personality profile built from tons of data that reveals not just who lives there, but how they live. It's a pretty fascinating peek behind the curtain of what makes a community tick, and today we're going to pull the file on one of them.
So just think about this for a second. What if I told you that your street, your entire neighborhood, has probably already been analyzed and sorted into a specific category? A group with a name, a set of habits, and even its own consumer preferences. Now, this isn't science fiction. It's actually a really powerful tool that's shaping the world all around you.
So what's this all called? Well, the science behind it is known as consumer segmentation, and it goes way, way beyond simple things like census data. It sorts communities into these detailed groups based on everything from their income to whether they prefer, say, organic groceries. Honestly, think of it like a high-tech sorting hat, but for entire towns.
Okay, to make this all feel a little more real, we're going to look at the secret blueprint for one specific place. So, welcome to Howell, a township over in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Let's dig in and see what the data really says about the people who call this place home. All right, first up, let's start with the basics. You know, the kind of top-level numbers you might find in any encyclopedia. This is kind of the first layer of our investigation. So, as of 2024, the population of Howell Township is just over 39,000 people. It's a decent-sized suburban community for sure, but this number, by itself, it doesn't really tell us much about the actual character of the town. Now, here's another key number for you. The median household income is almost $127,000. Okay, so this tells us the area is pretty well off, relatively affluent. But again, it's just a number, right? It doesn't tell us how people are spending that money or what they value or what their day-to-day lives are actually like. For that, we've got to go deeper. And this is where it gets really interesting. This chart, this is the real story. Using a system called tapestry segmentation, the whole population gets broken down into these distinct lifestyle groups. And would you look at that? The biggest slice of this pie, at almost 40%, belongs to just one single category called Pleasantville. That is a huge concentration. So who exactly are the residents of Pleasantville? Let's zoom in on this dominant profile and let's treat it like we're meeting a character for the very first time. This source material uses this just perfect phrase to describe them: prosperous domesticity. I mean, it immediately paints a picture, doesn't it? It just suggests comfort, stability, and a real focus on home and family life, all in a nice, well-off suburban setting. The details here really paint a clear picture. The Pleasantville profile is mainly slightly older, dual-income couples. You know, a lot of them are empty nesters who live in these established single-family homes. They have a high net worth, and when it comes to style, they aren't chasing the latest trends. They much prefer a classic, timeless look. And this profile, it totally extends to their consumer behavior. They're likely driving an imported SUV and prefer to play it safe with conservative investments. And with those older homes that need some upkeep, they'd much rather hire a contractor than do it themselves. For fun, they're often gardening or maybe visiting theme parks. It really paints a very, very specific picture of a lifestyle. But of course, no town is a monolith, right? Pleasantville might be the biggest piece of the puzzle, but there are other important profiles here that add to Howell's overall character. So let's take a quick look at the rest of the mix. So here we see the next two biggest groups, and they show these different flavors of what it means to be affluent. Savvy suburbanites are also doing well, but they're more into DIY projects and organic food. They're the foodies. On the other hand, you have the professional pride segment. They're more likely to hire help, fill their newer homes with tech like home gyms and theaters, and are super goal-oriented with their careers and their money. And rounding out the top 5, you see even more variety. Enterprising professionals are a younger, tech-focused group, many of whom are renting. Then you have City Lights, which is the most racially diverse segment here, a mix of renters and owners who are pretty health-conscious and budget-savvy. The big point is that even within one suburban zip code, there's a really complex mix of lifestyles going on.
So we've seen the blueprint. We've met the different personalities of Howell, New Jersey, but what does all of this actually mean? Why does this data-driven portrait of a town really matter in the real world? What's the so what?
Let's frame it this way. How does knowing that nearly 40% of the town fits that Pleasantville profile, how does that actually change the experience of living there for everybody? Well, it has a huge impact. First off, it drives business. The mix of stores and restaurants that decide to open in Howell is directly influenced by the spending habits of Pleasantville and savvy suburbanites.
Second, it shapes marketing. The ads you see online, in your mailbox, they are tailored to these exact profiles. Third, it impacts real estate. Agents use this data to match buyers with not just a house, but a whole lifestyle. And finally, yep, it even affects local politics, as campaigns can fine-tune their messaging to resonate with the values of these very specific groups.
And maybe the most powerful takeaway here is this. The data doesn't just describe a community, it can actively shape it. See, when businesses and marketers cater so specifically to the dominant profile, it just reinforces the neighborhood's existing character. This creates a kind of feedback loop that can make a Pleasantville town even more Pleasantville over time.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. We've pulled the file on Howell, New Jersey, and we've seen its intricate personality. But what about where you live? What are the dominant tribes, the hidden trends, the consumer profiles that are shaping your world right now? What's the secret blueprint of your town?